the greatest agents will still hear no more than they'll hear yes. Cal Ripken missed 70% of his swings, but he's still a Hall of Famer because he has a 300 batting average, right? So it's having that perspective and humility that I didn't have that was a contributing factor. And I think, and I'll say as a side note, and then you can jump back in, the way that I overcame that was understanding that this is a business of activity.
What's up, everybody? Got the one and only David Duford on the call today. Dude, thank you so much for coming on here, man. I've watched a lot of your content. I really enjoy you and Cody's training material. If you could just kind of fill me in on what you used to do, like your upbringing, stuff like that, who you are, where you're from. Really love to get a backstory behind you.
Little backstory. All right. So I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I remain, or I'm currently present. My mom and dad divorced when I was 3. I grew up with my mom, and I'll come back to why that's important. I grew up with my mom, standard middle class, lower middle class upbringing. My mom was a full-time nurse and dialysis and renal, and went to public school, normal upbringing. Always did well in school. And part of the reason I mentioned my mom and dad got divorced, because that's like normal, it's like not that shocking. It was really interesting because my dad abandoned me by about 11 or 12. I didn't talk to my dad for like 5 years until I was like a teenager. And my father, I knew he ran a business. And again, not very marginal relationship with my father. And when I got to see where he lived down in the south of Georgia, my father was immensely wealthy. He had started and ran a very successful chemical company. He had hundreds of employees nationally. He worked, traveled all the time, specialized in poultry, the sanitization. And he actually sold his business in 2006 to Ecolab for millions and millions of dollars. So I had this really interesting dichotomy. Like, I grew up with the mindset of a lower middle class, normal person, kind of just, I don't think much of myself. But I saw how my dad was fabulously wealthy and successful. And it kind of planted this seed in me at a young age, that in my teenage years, that I wanted to do something. It wasn't so much about having opulence or wealth, but it was having kind of like this purpose and, to create and to do something and have meaning or significance beyond just, checking the clock and going to work, which nothing wrong with that. But for me, I felt like there was a higher calling. So, I went to school at Boston University. I graduated a year early with a bachelor's in business administration. Biggest regret of my life was spending my grandparents' and parents' money on that school. Waste of money. Don't do it, guys. College is overrated. Sell insurance instead. So I came home, didn't know what I wanted to do. Actually, I was a personal trainer. I enjoyed that. I love helping people. So eventually partnered with a local gym down here. Learned the lessons of why you never partner with anybody. Partnerships are doomed to fail. And started a gym, did well, bailed on my partner, kind of bailed on each other, really. Then I took my business, created what was called Body Elite Personal Training, ran that from like 22 to 25, 26. Did okay as a young guy with a wife and a kid. But then the Great Recession hit, and the Great Recession devastated Main Street. Wall Street did okay, except I guess for 6 months or so there. But Main Street got clobbered, and I watched a third to a half of my clients vanish over the course of 2 months. And it took about 2009 or 10 to that to happen. And I recognized that I couldn't stay in this business anymore. Like, I had to do something. I had my kid, who was like, David was probably 1 or 2 at that time, and looked around for jobs. Nobody was hiring. I thought, hey, hire an entrepreneur. Who wouldn't hire an entrepreneur? Well, apparently nobody will. Entrepreneurs are kind of pig-headed anyway. They don't make great employees. So I stumbled across insurance. I got desperate. I mean, what else are you going to do, right? So I luckily came across the insurance forums, came across Final Expense, an agent named John Duggar, who I've interviewed a couple of times, the OG of Final Expense, and read his post. I was like, hell, this doesn't sound that bad. I just got to go out there and talk to people and sling some insurance and help them out. It's kind of an activity business. It's not something I have to have like big brains for, So I started with a company called Equita Final Expense Services. Did okay in my first couple of months, part-time. I still have my personal training gym. Didn't want to give it up. Did really well. Going into 6 months, closed the personal training gym. And then about 6 months later after that, I failed the business. Had to go get a real job working for a company called Aramark, selling uniform services. And it was great because I realized, like sometimes you got to like screw up to appreciate the things that you took for granted, like entrepreneurship and having your own business. Like working for the man, terrible. It's terrible. Slinging craft that you don't believe in. It's kind of what that was. And that inspired me to get back into final expense, but do it right. And it took me a year this time of doing it part-time the second time before I dumped the job and went full-time, and thankfully never looked back. Sold insurance, started building my agency, did that simultaneously for about 3 or 4 years before I went fully into agency building mode about middle of 2017. So about 4.5 years in. The rest is history.
That's awesome, man. So you said your dad sold his company to Ecolab?
He did, yes.
Have you ever read David Goggins' book?
That's that guy that like runs outside and curses at you the whole time, right?
Yeah, who's going to carry the boats? Well, that's funny because he used to work at Ecolab, spraying for like cockroaches and stuff there at Chemic. So there.
Oh, okay.
Only reason that's funny is my dad was actually, even though he was in the military, he got his PhD in like chemical engineering and all that stuff. Cool. He pretty much does exactly what your dad did.
Oh yeah, what companies do you work for?
He owned his own company. I know he just basically worked with the EPA, and I know his wife was like working. She was measuring pollution from those big stacks that release the smoke. She had like measure the pollution from those. Not sure what they're called, but
right.
That's just funny. It's just kind of similar. So
see if your dad remembers Duke Him. That's my dad's company.
Duke Him. See, that's the only thing that I probably haven't had a relationship with my father since I was probably 12 or 13.
Yeah,
it's really just made me want to work harder to get his approval throughout the years without me even really realizing that, just because I didn't have too many good father figures growing up. So that's just funny how similar a story it is.
I kind of feel the same way. I think part of my drive is that kind of affirmation, from a
I'll be honest, and I really just found that out in the last couple months. Like I just wanted my dad's approval so much, and I would do whatever it took for him to get to notice me and love me as a son. So that's.
I've kind of come to the conclusion, like my father is who he is, and
I've accepted it. Yeah,
it's nothing personal against me. It's just for whatever reason he has a dysfunctional personality that can't like be normal.
Maybe not a clash of personality, just a classic, or not a clash of characteristics, just a clash of personality.
Yeah, I get along with my dad fine, but he just for whatever reason won't be a dad, and it's like it's not my fault, so the good news, we can change the trajectory of our families, and make changes, and it's 100%. Part of the reason why I work at home. I'm all around my kids all the time. I try as much as I can to make up for that.
I love that, man. I thought you were like 24, 25. Like what's your, is that like way off or
37?
At least you look super young, man. You got that going for you. It's probably just the gym. But how many other people have you talked to in Symmetry? Like I've seen you've done really amazing training videos. A lot of my people watch those. You and Cody Askins. So like, how many people are you like friends with in Symmetry, stuff like that?
The Brennis Bros. Frank and I have done a few videos, and he was affiliating a product that we tried to kind of sell to the subscriber base and my email list. Besides that, I'm trying to think. Nobody really off the top of my head, that's just striking me as somebody we've talked to, and except you, of course. About it.
No, gotcha. Well, like I said, I appreciated the Symmetry video you made just because it was honest. Like I believe everywhere you go, you have to find the right agency.
Right. Sure. Oh yeah.
There's bad apples in every company.
Right.
Who am I to say there's none in the one I work for? That's just unrealistic. So, David, where do you see most agents fail? Like, well, how long have you been in the industry now?
2011. So coming up 11 years. Yeah.
12 years. what's the biggest problem you see with agents facing that and they just gone?
I just think it's not having the capacity to do this business. And that's very vague, but for example, you need to be an entrepreneur and have that kind of sense of you to be successful. And the fact is the minority of people don't. Most people are just programmed to be employees, to take orders, to complain about their job, but like never self initiate. And that's just the way of the world, right? There's just some things that's the way it is. And that's okay. I mean, we need employees, we need people to do jobs that suck, but there's a minority, a small minority of people that have the tenacity and the drive and emotional stability to do well at this. And I think that's probably the first thing, is just some people just don't have what it takes. And again, call me a cynic, but that's just true. I mean,
no, you're right. Because if everyone did this, we'd all be making $5-6 an hour.
Yeah. And I look at it this way too. I mean, 95% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. I mean, the stats are very similar to insurance sales. So it's nothing. I think it has to go back to that core capability to execute, because this is performance-based stuff here. Like, the buck stops with you on everything. If you don't make money, you don't eat. And that's tough. A lot of people want certainties and guarantees. They want a wage, and going 100% straight on commission is tough. So I think it's just the mindset and the mentality most people don't have. For those that entered the business to give it a shot, I think it's going to be some sort of tangential point related to that. Maybe, they don't have the training or support. That's important too. Certainly enough money for leads. A big problem, agents come in and they just like Hail Mary their money. And I told a guy yesterday, he's like, I got like $400 for leads. I'm like, don't do it, man. Like, this is what we call a Hail Mary. Like, when everything else fails, this is the last ditch effort to get this. Like, that's not how you run. Yeah. And there's always exceptions to rules, but that's not how you run a business. You don't run a business
not profitably. No,
not on hope. You have to run it on a strategy, and you have to be, as much as possible, rolling and bankroll. You've got to have a bankroll to back you up. You don't have to have a huge one, but you've got to have at least a couple weeks worth of leads. Certainly your expenses controlled. So it's usually a combination of that, the training and the support necessary to do well, the realistic amount of money to run leads and give yourself the odds of success. And above all else, some people are just a mismatch for entrepreneurship. And, maybe they'll do better if they work for a State Farm and get a wage, or something like that. And that's fine.
100%, dude. I like that. What were some of the biggest, I know you said you had kind of quit the first time. What were some of those struggles that were really holding you back, or those expensive lessons you had to learn early on?
So, ego check. I'll explain that in a second. And certainly like emotional control over the ups and downs. And then also understanding how to solve that is through having too much to do versus too little. So the first mistake I made was I came into the insurance business with this idea that I knew how to market and create. I had created an advertorial, which is like, it's an advertisement that looks like an editorial in a newspaper. And it resulted in like 90% of my revenue for my personal training business. So I had this preconceived notion I knew what I was doing. Even though I didn't know insurance experientially, I had that arrogance. And I created a lead piece. And I thought, man, this is going to pull me all sorts of money. I don't need to see deadbeats anymore or run appointments where the person's just going to, waste my time and look for Uncle Sugar life insurance. And so what happened was it was a miserable failure. Actually, I got some results, but it was no better. In fact, it was worse than the plain old boring final expense vanilla leads that we work on a daily basis. And at that time I did it, I had very little money in reserves. I was like tapped out on all my credit cards. And in combination with some stuff, one of I had switched to IMOs, what they were doing at the time, they screwed up my leads. And lo and behold, I was like broke. I had like $92 in my bank account. I didn't know what to do. Wasn't getting paid. And I was just sick and tired of the business. I quit. The other thing I didn't understand was, you know, like what I was experiencing is what everybody experiences, like deadbeat prospects, prospects that don't buy, prospects that waste your time. It's not unusual. It's the norm, right? And the paradox of this business is the greatest agents will still hear no more than they'll hear yes. You know, Cal Ripken missed 70% of his swings, but he's still a Hall of Famer because he has a 300 batting average, right? So it's having that perspective and humility that I didn't have, that was a contributing factor. And I think, and I'll say as a side note, and then you can jump back in, the way that I overcame that was understanding that this is a business of activity. Like the way you overcome resistance and hardship is massive action. When you're up to your eyeballs in leads and you've got the best problem in the world, too many people to see, like all these little problems with prospects and all that crap, like doesn't matter because you're doing so much business because you're seeing so many people. So there's safety in numbers. And so when I came back, I fixed that little problem, bought the right kind of leads too. And found that I didn't care as much about the negativity when I was so busy with positivity.
Yeah, those no's and go pound sands don't matter too much. Yeah, we actually call that massive action, constant correction. Just learn by doing. So yeah. I love that. It is a numbers game. A lot of people fail to realize that. They're focusing on people who don't want to buy insurance, whereas we focus on people who do. We're not trying to turn no's into yeses.
Well, and the thing is, it's easier to focus on the people who want to buy insurance when you have enough leads. That's the thing, because when you have too few leads and your lead flow is this slow, and you're not running, really more specifically, you're not running as the maximum amount of appointments you can. Like every no stings that much harder, right? But you know, if you're running 20 appointments a week, seeing, you know, closing half, you know, those 10 told you no, plus the others that you tried to book told you no, but who cares? I wrote 10 policies, you know, I probably made a high multiple of my investment, you know, so that's what it takes to overcome that stuff. And again, it's 100%. Normal to feel discouraged and upset and angry at times, you know, but
you have a lot more confidence when you just sold 10 the week before, or you just booked. Yeah. I love that. What do you see that most agents just need to focus on? Like, what do you think is most important when someone new comes into this industry? What does their main priority or focus need to be on?
When they choose a partner, they need to put blinders on. They need to marry to that partner. They need to shut my YouTube videos off. That's what I've told my agents, or I've told even on my channel. I was like, look, when you pick somebody, like, you should probably shut my channel off and just listen to what they say, because I do think to some extent, again, I'm speaking to the broad audience here, right? Like having 2 or 3 or 4 people, gurus, whatever, in your ear telling you should say this or you should say that, or you shouldn't do this or you should do that. It's confusing, and confusion adds complexity. And when things are complex, you don't have success. So you purposely want to simplify where you can all the time under all conditions. And I think when you join an agency, dialing into that agency with 100% effort, burning the boats, no plan B is the way to go. So that's the big thing. And I'll tell you this, guys, I'll say this, I don't mean to drone on, but I think about this a lot, Mason. You know, this is the hardest it's ever been to do that. There's a book up here, if you guys like reading, there's a book called Growing Rich by Randall Baskin. He started American Continental out of Nashville in the 50s or 60s, wildly successful, grew up in rural Tennessee, dirt floors, tin roof, bipolar mom, not treated. Dad was a drunk, you know, like terrible conditions, complete poverty. And when he got into it sold his business to, eventually Aetna owns American Continental, right? So this guy's a multimillionaire, you know, hundreds of times over. When he got into the insurance business, he didn't have YouTube and, you know, Mason or me or Cody or other people telling you what you should think or how you should think and all these different perspectives. He answered one ad in the newspaper about selling group insurance or, you know, some kind of ancillary product. And he just went there and he went to work. He didn't have like 5 or 6 or 7 choices, because choices are illusions. It's an illusion of choice that's good. It's not good. Too many choices is confusing. Yep. So you have to, I go back to my point, you have to synthetically stop yourself from this exposure. And you have to, when you pick somebody and after you've done your due diligence, that's when you shut everything else off, I think, and go all in. Because it's just, man, it's just, you're going to be tempted to think, well, man, maybe I should go sell Medicare, after a couple of rough weeks, or maybe a mortgage protection is the answer. You're always gonna be looking for that next best thing. But you won't ever get that important exposure and growth opportunity through frustration, and there are tons of agents that have years of experience, but no depth of experience because they switch around and they never dig their heels in and take the beating that they need to get better. That's my
I like that. I've never heard anyone say that, so that's real. What were some of the biggest problems you had building your agency? Like how big is your because it's just the Duford Insurance Group, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How big is that kind of thing now?
I have 150 to 200 agents writing something like a mixture of final expense, mostly more and more Medicare with each passing year. That's a big growth trajectory for us. And then some annuities. I'd love to write more annuities. But we pretty much stick there. Of course, we write other stuff, but that's 90% of the business. I've recruited over 3,000 agents. And frankly, I'll tell you, I mean, recruiting's never been that hard for me. And the reason why is because my whole strategy, I was blessed with timing and an industry that's devoid of training and support. And when I started my agency, it took me about a year or two, but I realized nobody's on YouTube. YouTube's like one of the best resources. It gives you a celebrity-like appeal. Like people talk to me, like, Dave, I've talked to you. I've known you for years. Feels like I'm like, cool, man. I'm just some dude.
So they know your name and they want your approval, and you know nothing about them. They're just seeking validation.
But it's almost like you're a TV star in a sense, and which sounds weird, but like I don't think of myself that way.
I've even noticed that myself now. I've got a couple hundred subs, and it's starting to skyrocket now because there's just no one else in the space.
Right.
Like you and Cody have your own things, and I'm building my own little forte. And it's can you do mentoring? Can I come work with you? Can I come live with you?
Yeah. Well, I haven't had anybody propose to me that yet. So, but yes, that's the little secret here. Like, if you want to position your brand, there's nothing better than a video-based platform like YouTube, because in our niche, the biggest problem in our niche is training and development and skill development. Like the typical mentality of the agency out there is to serve some of this right here. You guys see this? Are you old enough to know who this is? Yeah. Serve Kool-Aid, man. Like they want to talk about the money, and not that that's wrong to talk about what's achievable, but it's the sleight of hand. It's like, look at all this stuff, but we're not going to train or support you. We're not going to provide a lead system that's turnkey or duplicatable. And that's part of the reason I think there's a high turnover rate in this business. So all I did was just tell everybody what I do. I told them how I sold. I told them how I set appointments. I talked about the frustrations, leads. And it snowballed because nobody was really doing it to the propensity that I was. And people are starved for skill development in the insurance sales space. And
it is a lot of flash. Like, look at this Lamborghini I rented, but I'm not going to tell you about my Instagram post.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's entrepreneurship now is like a trend. It wasn't.
Hey, whatever works for you. I can't be jealous.
Well, yeah. But understand there's a lot of attention in entrepreneurship as a whole, not just insurance. And when people are drawing their attention there, it's like flash sells, but there's no substance to the sale many times. And so my whole approach, like I don't tell people what I earn. It's none of y'all's business. Like it's just me and my wife's, not wives. One wife is enough, ladies and gentlemen. So, I never share that stuff. I don't show my car. I don't show off my house. I could, I guess, but like, to me, it's disingenuous because it's not what you're there for. The people are there because they're starved for help, because they're not getting it most of the time. So that's why it's never been that difficult for me to recruit, because I realized that if I just keep doing and providing good information, that the people will show up. because YouTube's a fantastic platform for that.
What is it? The number, like the second most
Second search engine. Yeah, it's the
outside,
second
what
to
is it, Google?
Yeah, yes.
And don't they own YouTube?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They own both. Now, but what's cool about YouTube is that you can go to Google, and I rank for a lot of stuff in Google. I spend a lot of time developing blog posts to rank. The difference though is that you don't create the same relationship with your viewers on Google and your blog as you would on YouTube. YouTube has this entirely different appeal that again is akin to like being a celebrity and just like micro niche, right? And so it's by the time you talk to them, if you deliver on the goods, it's like it's like order taking essentially. So I mean, 100%. Like again, the other factor to YouTube that works so well with recruiting is like most people won't do it long enough. Like I've seen agencies come and go with good concepts, good content, but they just quit. You know, they do it for a couple months, like, oh, this sucks, doesn't work. I didn't get traction for 2 years. And once something happened in 2017 and the views went through the roof and YouTube started noticing, like that's like I could show you my screen right now and you can see it, like it just pops out of nowhere. So I mean that's how it is. YouTube's kind of just waiting for you to like,
it's the algorithm.
It's the algorithm, and they want to see if you're actually going to contribute to the platform on a consistent basis, you know, and most people just don't do it. They run out of ideas.
That's what I learned personally. If I keep posting every Wednesday at the same time, and they've been pushing my stuff out to more people.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I do daily because my thought was, okay, if I fast forward the clock 5 years, if you're doing once a week times 5, that's roughly 200.
Oh yeah. I'll never have as many videos.
Well, and think about it. There's all these little variations of search terms too that people go to. Well, if I put out 30 a month and you fast forward that and multiply by 60 months, 5 years, right? Is that right? Something like that.
Yeah.
I've got how much do I have? 1,800. I have 1,800 videos out compared to your 250. So like, and I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just saying this is the kind of stuff that you need to push yourself on the platform because it's you. It's me. Cody's got a whole team behind him, helping him rank his stuff.
Now more people are starting to jump in.
Yeah, and Gary Vaynerchuk too, an influencer on YouTube. You know, he's a big proponent, and this is kind of where it tapped in for me. It's like, guys, don't worry about your production quality or just everything being just so. Perfect. The way to quality is through quantity. If you put out content daily, you will get better. Because you're just at the plate swinging more, you know? And so that's what I did. You know, I just put out a bunch of content relentlessly and kind of works, you know? So.
I love that, dude. What's your biggest piece of advice just to kind of close this down? Just someone maybe new looking to join insurance.
Pick one product, specialize in one thing. Pick one agency that you want to be married to. Obviously, like I said, put the blinders on. Go all in. No plan B. If you have a plan B, you have an exit strategy, which means that you're not committed. And don't think ready, aim, fire. Think ready, fire, aim. You need to like study and practice and prepare before you go to battle. But it's the paradox. Another paradox of this business is you don't get good at it till you do it. So that means when you first do it, you're not good at it. So you're just always going to have an insecurity. You're always going to feel like, do I know enough? Everybody feels that way. The key is you got to take that leap of faith. It's you can't overcome the faith leap to this business. So take it, get smacked around and beat up a little bit, get feedback from your upline, what you're doing right, what you can improve on, and just keep going to work. It'll eventually get easier. It takes time. And it's good that it takes time because you don't want this to be too easy because like you said earlier, Mason, everybody be doing it. And we'd be making Walmart greeter wages.
Yay.
Maybe, I don't know, $15, $20 an hour these days. Maybe that's kind of the thing now. I mean, it's not so bad. So.
No, not for me. Dude, thank you so much for coming on here, sure. David. This was absolute fun for me, man.
Cool.
If anyone wants to like follow you or come get advice, whatever, mentoring, where can they kind of go?
Just put my name in the YouTubes, David Duford, and then go down the black hole. watching my videos.
Yeah, symmetry agents, go ahead and shut this off, but they'll get sucked in. No, dude, this was fun, man. Hey, thank you so much, and hope to talk to you more in the future, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Mason.
See you, man.